Don't miss Cabela's Black Friday Doorbuster sale. Be one of the first 600 in line to receive a free giveaway. Doors open at 5 a.m. Can't wait? Cabela's is now open on Thanksgiving Day. Shop in-store and at Cabela's.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687. 687.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Attention business owners and independent contractors. This is a money-saving message from Tax Mediation Services. If your business owes $20,000 or more in taxes, we can help you today, right now. Listen, dealing with the IRS is no picnic. It's an intimidating and extremely stressful process, and you don't want to go it alone. Our attorneys know every law, every tax break, and every possible opportunity to help you resolve and reduce your tax debt. And if you owe more than $20,000, you may be at the top of their hit list. So don't take your tax debt lightly, because it will not go away on its own. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, your home, and even shut down your business. Call our tax experts today at 1-800-783-0810 and let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-783-0810. Again, that's 800-783-0810.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq, Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now, 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
Sometimes riders feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
My name is Jessie. I'm a United States Special Forces widow. This gives me a unique perspective on the world around us. If you're willing to listen, I'll tell you how I see it, and I won't pull any punches. This is my POV, which stands for Point of View.
Hi everyone, this is Jesse's POV. I will be a temporary host this evening, Justin Kinney. Jessie can't talk tonight, so she's having me fill in for her.
Yeah, I'm kind of squeaky the mouse tonight. This is as loud as I get, friends, so Justin is definitely the answer for the evening.
Well, we hope you feel better soon. I thought we'd kick things off tonight by talking about some events taking place over in Africa, in the Republic of Zimbabwe. For those of you who don't know, Zimbabwe is kind of a landlocked country in southern Africa, kind of between the Zambezi and the Limpopo rivers. So it's been undergoing quite a bit of upheaval recently. For those of you who haven't been following the news, the president, by the name of Mugabe, has been put under house arrest. He's the only country that leader or the only leader that country has known since it first got independence back in 1980. So he's really the only one in charge that's led this country for 37 plus years now. Now he's actually not the longest serving leader in Africa. There's one more, I think, who's longer than he is, but he has been serving a very long time. Equatorial Guinea is the one leader that's longer than him. But Mugabe has been he's been very controversial over the years. As if you've been following, there was just recently a case where he was involved with an American who was arrested in their country for insulting him at one point. So there's been some problems with Zimbabwe over the years and some human rights issues. But as of a couple days ago, the military has essentially taken over the country, the Zimbabwean Defense Forces. That's the ZDF, and they've officially not called it a coup. In fact, they had a leader on the TV who explicitly said it was not a coup. But it's whenever you have a leader come on your screen in full military gear, reading off a paper telling you it's not a coup, it's pretty much a coup. So this has been kind of a pretty big deal. They're pressuring Mugabe to resign, but he has kind of resisted that for the moment. But effectively, the Zimbabwean Defense Forces are in charge of the company, in charge of the country, which has made the political future of that country pretty much up in the air. Now that does raise some questions as to who would be the one to succeed him, as who would be coming up next. And the big thought on this is a guy named Emerson Mnangagwa. he made news not too long ago in Zimbabwe because he was actually the former vice president. And Mugabe fired him, trying to claim power. He was trying to shift power, I believe, over to his wife instead. But Mnangagwa is probably the most likely person to take charge in this situation. If Mugabe, finally does step down and resign. Now, if he refuses to resign, obviously there's a lot of questions as to what would happen next. But he's pretty much lost control of the country. He's, obviously said been around a long time. He's 37 years. He's now, I believe, 93. So he's really getting up there in age. But Mnangagwa is, I believe he's in his 70s as well. So the transition of power there will be quite interesting. As I said, this is the only guy who's been in power since they gained their independence. So they have not seen a transition of power so far. Now, and there has been a question in terms of what they're going to do with Mugabe, and it's really kind of unknown as to whether or not they'll arrest him, execute him, or just kind of let him disappear from the public view. And I honestly I don't really know what's going to happen with it. Zimbabwe was not. The country is not foreign to executions. They've definitely used this many times in the past. So that is certainly a possibility. It seems like, at least at the moment, they're just pushing him to resign. So that appears to be, at least they're hoping for a, I guess, quote unquote, peaceful transition where they allow him to resign and kind of disappear. But they're not really sure. Now, this is the country that was called Rhodesia. So if you heard that before, it was called Rhodesia for pretty much the first half of the 20th century until, I want to say, it was like the 60s. And then they went through a long civil war period. There was several different leaders that took place, and then they gained their independence in about 1980, and that's when Mugabe took power. He was actually elected in 1980. He became the first prime minister, first head of government. It was a landslide, and he's been in charge ever since. But some of the human rights issues that have come up over the years, and some of the problems that he's faced, have led to a lot of dissent among not only his citizens but from the global community at large. And so this is really a kind of a scenario to keep an eye on going forward, especially as we see maybe who is going to succeed him. This new individual, the one who was vice president before Mugabe removed him, is thought to be almost equally as much a tyrant as Mugabe was. He's has kind of a dark past. He's been widely kind of despised throughout his country. And there's some concern that he may actually end up being a more repressive leader than even Mugabe was. When he did work for Mugabe before his firing, he actually acted as kind of like the enforcer. He ran the secret police. I forget what they're called, the Central Intelligence Organization, I believe. And he apparently had a role in quite a few massacres over the years. And so there is some thought that he would be even worse than Mugabe. Now, Mugabe's regime has been known for having quite a bit of repression as well. They've really cracked down on a lot of the like the free speech elements. As I mentioned, there was an American who was thrown in prison there for insulting him. I believe she insulted him online, and while she was in the country, and they arrested her. They have instituted over the years death camps, killing thousands of people, military internment camps, those sorts of things. And over the years, there's been a lot of protests about this. Students, trade unionists, civil servants have been on strike. Doctors and nurses went on strike a while back, maybe 20 years ago. And Mugabe has really tried to crush a lot of these things. So it's definitely kind of a very uneasy and unstable situation taking place right now in that country. And it'll be interesting to kind of watch going forward to see where who the new regime would be and kind of which direction that's going to take. Mugabe was seen as kind of trying to shore up even more power recently, which is thought to be the trigger for this recent non-coup, as they're calling it. He's made quite a few unpopular moves, but Mugabe is, at least for now, he's out of the picture, out of control, and Mnangagwa is the one who looks most likely to take over for Mugabe once the military kind of handles this. Currently, Mugabe is under house arrest. He's kind of just being held. Not really sure what the situation is there. They haven't they haven't really spoken out about that too much, but it will be something to keep an eye on going forward. Let's see. So we shift gears a little bit. There's been some interesting news out of North Korea. As if you guys listen to this program, you know North Korea comes up quite frequently. There's always some news. Yes, there's always some news happening out of there. And just a day or two ago, I think it was yesterday, there was an incident along the DMZ, the demilitarized zone between North Korea and South Korea, where a North Korean decided to defect, and he just took off running across the DMZ under a hail of gunfire. The North Koreans just started firing on him as he was trying to flee the country. He was shot several times and is currently he survived. He's currently in critical condition in a South Korean hospital, and they've been kind of evaluating him. He's riddled with parasites, including one that they claim that the South Koreans claim they've never seen before. So that kind of hints at some of the problems that may be taking place in North Korea. But this defector is particularly interesting. They as I said, he got shot 5 times. They were essentially firing on him. He was just fleeing across the border. They shot, I think, 40 rounds, hit him 5 times, and he's really in some critical condition. One interesting thing of note, though, that you throw a little crazy into the story, is that the same day that this took place in North Korea, there was actually an American who was arrested for trying to defect to North Korea. I don't know if you guys have come across this story recently, but there was an American man who was arrested trying to cross into North Korea as he was trying to defect to Kim Jong-un's regime. They haven't identified this man as of yet, but he was in his late 50s, maybe 60, and he was from Louisiana. Not really sure why he was headed to North Korea or why he thinks they're such a paradise, but it's interesting. On the exact same day that a North Korean gets shot trying to flee, an American gets arrested trying to cross into North Korea to defect there as well. Now, this individual, this man has been detained, so he didn't actually make it. He arrived in Seoul first and was spotted trying to cross the line, towards the DMZ and cross into the rogue northern neighbor there. And they're essentially at the moment they're just investigating him and trying to figure out what he was doing and what he was thinking. But the dichotomy there is quite interesting with essentially 2 individuals trying to defect and almost crossing paths as they were doing so. It's quite unusual, and it'd be definitely something to kind of keep an eye on going forward. In addition, North Korea has been in the news recently, as you guys are probably aware. I should make the point here that most North Korean defectors actually end up traveling through China. So this is a little unusual that was going through South Korea instead. It would be something to look into as they're investigating these individuals. But North Korea has also been in the news recently. If you guys have been following President Trump's Asia tour, he was in China as one of his big stops. And one of the topics that's thought to have come up would be North Korea. China on Thursday, today, although obviously they're tomorrow now, but on Thursday they kind of reiterated a big call for an agreement between North Korea and the U.S. And they officially called for North Korea to freeze their nuclear weapons program, which in exchange they would grant some concessions to China. China would grant some concessions to North Korea in this situation. This initiative that they're trying to push forward is it kind of contradicts some of the thoughts that were happening prior to this, but it is something that has just come out since Trump has returned, and China is obviously a really big, important tool in the U.S. Foreign policy towards North Korea, as China is kind of the one big holdout when it comes to supporting North Korea. Most other countries are kind of on the U.S.'s side in this, but but China's been kind of the one big holdout, and China is North Korea's largest trading partner as well. So North Korea has relied pretty heavily on China as their big economic supporter. So China coming out and saying that North Korea should freeze its nuclear weapons program could potentially be a big deal, and China would be the big linchpin in this kind of standoff between the U.S. and North Korea. Just to tie this back to a few weeks ago as well, China did say that if North Korea, struck first against specifically the U.S., but any country really, China would not back North Korea anymore. But if somebody attacked North Korea first, they would step in. So basically, they would side on the defense either way. But this is a really big deal going forward for our personal foreign policy towards the North Koreans, as China is kind of that one key that North Korea continues to hold on to as their big backer. And China essentially prevents anyone from going into North Korea. And so if the U.S. Trump can somehow sway President Xi Jinping of China, then that would be a pretty big deal in our foreign policy towards the Kim family in North Korea as well. Now, I wanted to read a quick statement here from Trump that after his visit, hosted by Jinping. He claimed that President Jinping recognizes that nuclear North Korea is a grave threat to China, and we agreed that we would not accept a so-called freeze-for-freeze agreement like those that have consistently failed in the past. This is what he said on his initial return, and then obviously China put out this kind of freeze-for-freeze agreement as well. So there's some contradictory situations there. It's a little unknown as to why there's that contradiction. But it's definitely something that I'm sure Trump and a lot of the foreign policy advisors in the White House are keeping a very close eye on going forward.
War is never something the United States wants. We don't want it now. But our country's patience is not unlimited. We will defend our allies and our territory. The idea that some have suggested a so-called freeze for freeze is insulting. When a rogue regime has a nuclear weapon and an ICBM pointed at you, you do not take steps to lower your guard. No one would do that. We certainly won't.
All right, so in addition to this policy on North Korea, obviously a lot of the trip to Asia with Trump focused on North Korea and focused on trade, but China has also been kind of quietly pushing forward with another big policy that may affect foreign policy, and that's pushing into what's called the South China Sea. This is something they've been doing for a long time, but it seems like they should be pushing forward a little bit more of late on this. Essentially, what they're doing here is they're trying to expand their presence into this sea at the expense of some of the smaller countries and smaller neighbors. And so they're finding kind of these underwater atolls and reefs, building small little islands off of them, claiming them as Chinese land, and that allows them to expand their maritime rights further out into the ocean. And so they're trying to do this. And in particular, what they're doing is they're placing a lot of military facilities and airstrips and those type of things on these man-made islands, which is seen as obviously a militarization of the South China Sea. And a lot of the smaller countries in the area are a little wary of this. Vietnam, Philippines, some of the others as well have expressed concern. Now, at the Chinese Communist Party, they had their Congress last month, and President Xi Jinping, cited this island building in the South China Sea as one of his big achievements so far, and he's admitted to kind of pursuing this successful grab of maritime rights, but it's raised some eyebrows of late, particularly to these other countries that use those waterways for trade and things. Now Jinping has at least officially assured these neighbors that China will offer them safe passage, but it's definitely been kind of an unusual situation, and it's one to keep note. China, to their claim, they've said that they don't consider this a militarization. They're just expanding into what territory they believe is already rightfully theirs. But it's also pretty clear that this is you start installing military bases and radar and sensor installations, shelters for missiles, airstrips, those type of things. It certainly seems like a little bit more of a threat to China's potential regional hegemony in that area. Now, most of the activity in the South China Sea has really centered on three massive reefs that they've been kind of converted into artificial islands. They essentially dredge a lot of land and sand up onto these reefs. There's the Fiery Cross Reef, the Mischief Reef, and the Subi Reef, which are all in kind of the Spratly Islands area, which is about 600-700 miles off the shore of southern China. And satellite imagery has been able to kind of look at these, and we've noticed them installing runways, hangars, a couple domes that we can't quite tell what they're housing right now. But this Chinese regional hegemony is something that the U.S. has been concerned with, recently as well, because the U.S. wants a lot of that influence, and if China continues to expand, then they gain a lot more influence in Asia than the U.S. has traditionally been comfortable with. Now, I think we're kind of running right up on the time for commercials. A commercial break. It's right about the halfway point, so I will sign off for a minute and get those commercials in.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Attention business owners and independent contractors. This is a money-saving message from Tax Mediation Services. If your business owes $20,000 or more in taxes, we can help you today, right now. Listen, dealing with the IRS is no picnic. It's an intimidating and extremely stressful process, and you don't want to go it alone. Our attorneys know every law, every tax break, and every possible opportunity to help you resolve and reduce your tax debt. And if you owe more than $20,000, you may be at the top of their hit list. So don't take your tax debt lightly, because it will not go away on its own. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, your home, and even shut down your business. Call our tax experts today at 1-800-783-0810 and let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-783-0810. Again, that's 800-783-0810.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now. 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
Sometimes writers feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
Down if you wanna, you can run away if you wanna, you can pretend that this is totally okay if you wanna,
Well, thanks for hanging in there with us as we pay the bills with those commercials. For those of you who joined us late, my name is Justin Kinney. I'm filling in on Jesse's POV today. She's out with being unable to talk, the sore throat.
I'm Squeaky
now,
the Mouse, folks. Squeaky the Mouse.
Yeah, so I appreciate you hanging in there with me. Now, before the break, we were talking a little bit about China and North Korea, and I wanted to kind of kick things off again discussing that. But before I do, I just wanted to let everybody know that we will be ending this show with taps tonight. And yeah, so let's kick things off with China again. China, as I mentioned, has kind of been under some criticism for their support of North Korea, and there's been a lot of pressure on them to do more here. But there has been, at least from like an internal perspective in China, there's several analysts who have basically come out and say China is starting to drift on North Korea a little bit, drifting away from them. And this is something that's definitely good to be keeping an eye on. Their position on this has, they want a nuclear-free Korean Peninsula. They want peace, stability. These are coming from a Chinese analyst over there. So this question of these two societies, of the two Koreas, has been something that China has been talking about internally a lot recently, and it's believed that their relationship with North Korea has begun to kind of cool off over time, and it's at least there's a hope that Trump's visit over there with Xi Jinping made some headway on that as well. Now, to shift gears a little bit back to North Korea, there's been a couple other news items that have come out. There was just recently the U.S. government came out and warned that North Korean hackers, which would be sponsored by the state, sponsored by the North Korean government, have begun targeting the aerospace industry, the telecommunications industry, finance sector with malware. They said they've been doing this since 2016, so about a year now. And this alert, though, just came out a couple days ago from the Department of Homeland Security and as well as the FBI, which included a lot of technical details. If you're into that sort of thing, they released a lot of details about this malware called Fallchill, 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 that basically gives a hacker kind of control over the victim's computer, which allows you to kind of search, read, write, move around files, modify timestamps, those type of things, as well as delete any trace of that they've been there. Now, this is something, like I said, they've been trying to do for the last year or so, but cyber attacks are not unusual coming from North Korea. They've been accused of several major cyber attacks over the years. There was a big one that took place a few years ago where they were thought to have hacked Sony, the company Sony Pictures. There was also a breach around the same time that they said they accessed some South Korean warship plans. And then also just recently there was an alert for another North Korean malware called Volgmer, which is another kind of Trojan horse that was used to attack the government as well as a couple other industries like the automotive industry that it allows you to kind of steal files and such. So this is another way that North Korea has been active in trying to fight some of these battles without actually firing any missiles. But that does kind of raise another interesting point. For a while there were several missile attempts in a row out of North Korea, but we have seen kind of a halt to that. There's a recent halt in kind of both their nuclear and their missile testing. And General Mattis, the James Mad Dog Mattis, which is got to be one of my most favorite nicknames for a government official, he just today indicated that he believes this kind of recent slowdown in nuclear and missile testing may signal an opportunity for talks. He's kind of cautioned that this is a little too soon to start reading into it much, but he believes that this slowdown and stop on testing, development, it could be an opportunity there, because we haven't seen a missile or a nuclear test for about 2 months now. and that comes after a period where we saw 15 missile tests as well as one hydrogen bomb explosion that all took place in 9 months. So that would be 16 tests in 9 months, and then we haven't seen anything for the last 2 months. So again, General Mattis thinks this might be kind of a possibility to step in and engage in a little bit more diplomatic efforts as opposed to some of the hardline rhetoric that we've been seeing. Now, obviously, we don't want to speculate too much on what this means coming out of North Korea, and the government, and obviously intel officials are going to continue to monitor the situation, but it does. This change does seem to show something has happened, or they're waiting for something, or not really sure. But Mattis has long kind of maintained that a diplomatic solution is the best way to deal with Pyongyang and the Kim family. He has obviously gone on record and said military action is an option that will remain on the table, but he's been a big proponent of using a diplomatic solution to deal with them, and so him seeing this as kind of a potential opportunity is definitely interesting going forward, particularly with China and their efforts towards North Korea and some of their recent offers, as we mentioned, that they asked North Korea to stop some of its testing in exchange for some concessions on their end as well. So these kind of two things going together might indicate a potential change in our policy, or at least a mild shifting in the direction of maybe some diplomatic efforts for a little while too. In addition to this, this would have been actually it would have been just recently. China has also gotten involved with North Korea as they sent a special envoy, which included the president of China, Jinping, to North Korea. So they're traveling there and kind of a rare meetup or some rare talks with the North Korean government officials. So Jinping is traveling to Pyongyang for these discussions as well. So that's something to be keeping an eye on going forward. As I mentioned, China is kind of the linchpin in a lot of foreign policy, not only from the United States, but from quite a few other countries that may view North Korea as a potential threat too. Now, next, I kind of wanted to shift gears a little bit. We've been focusing on China and North Korea, but I wanted to shift over to another big country in Asia, and that would be Russia. Now, Russia has done a few things recently that I wanted to touch on. One big one that just happened, it came out today, was that Russia officially vetoed a big UN Security Council resolution. This was a mandate from an independent group that was investigating the chemical weapons attacks in Syria. Just as a little background, that during the Syrian civil conflict, the civil war that's been taking place there's been a couple instances where we've been able to detect chemical weapons that were used, and there was a lot of question about who used them. Both sides kind of argued that the other side was the one to utilize them, and so we had this independent group that was going in investigating these attacks. And so they had been doing this, and there was kind of a cease in it, and they were going to renew this mandate for this group to continue their investigation. But Russia came out and officially vetoed it. Now, this move has drawn a lot of criticism especially from the United States. Nikki Haley, the U.S. ambassador, is one of my favorites to listen to. She's great. She accused Russia of, in her words, striking a deep blow to UN efforts to identify those who use the chemical attacks and to deter future attacks. And so she's been very forceful in trying to criticize Russia for this veto. France has also kind of come out as being against this veto and questioning why Russia is doing this. Now, Syria, as I said, from a government perspective, has denied that they had anything to do with these attacks, and they blame them on the rebels, the rebel groups in the area. The rebels, in turn, argue that it was the Syrian regime who's using them on their own people. The biggest attack would have been back in April when about 80 people were killed by sarin gas. in a rebel-held town. So it hit a rebel embankment, a rebel location, which is why initial thoughts were it was Bashar al-Assad from the Syrian government. But anyway, that's what this investigation was continuing to do. Now, the resolution for how the UN works, you have to get a majority of the Security Council, but you also have to get all of the veto players on your side. The resolution ended up with overwhelming support for continuing the investigation, but because one of the only couple votes against it was Russia, they're a permanent council member, they have veto power. The resolution then fails to pass, which means that the mandate to investigate expired at midnight tonight. Obviously, it's past midnight over there, so it is over now officially, rather than being extended for another year. Now, Russia, for their side of things, they had an ambassador who came out and said Russia's problem was not with the work of the investigators, but it was specifically with the mandate, saying the group is prejudiced against Russia, who's been fighting in Syria as well, and they believe that some of the investigators' work had some flaws, and so they had some problems with the group and some problems with how they were handling themselves in the investigation, but not necessarily the resolution to investigate itself. That's what Russia is claiming to do. But this has drawn a lot of criticism, and Nikki Haley even tweeted out recently, earlier today, about this, saying that by using the veto to kill a mechanism in Syria that holds users of chemical weapons accountable, Russia proves that they cannot be trusted or credible as we work towards a political solution in Syria. And as well, President Trump tweeted about this too, and so he's also very critical of the Russian veto, and saying you need the whole Security Council to back this. Now, before the vote, the UK ambassador had come out about this, claiming that these conspiracy theories that the investigators were operating in bias towards one country or another. He called them ridiculous, saying that these conspiracy theories were just trying to come up with ways to explain away the use of chemical weapons, and he said these were just frankly ridiculous conspiracy theories. That's a quote. So there's been a lot of debate about this, and it looks like, at least for now, Russia's veto is going to hold, and there's not much that can be done. One of the big issues with the UN, and this happened over and over again throughout the entirety of the Cold War pretty much, is that when you have veto players like this, it's hard to get some things done, because especially when you have at least two members on opposite sides of issues, and this happened over and over again during the Cold War. It was one of the big criticisms of the UN as well, because they essentially came up as impotent in a lot of these very big conflicts that were taking place. And Syria is another situation where you have multiple members of the Security Council kind of on opposite sides. You have the U.S. backing certain rebel groups. You have Russia backing the Syrian regime and Bashar al-Assad, and pretty much everybody fighting ISIS. And it's a very tangled, convoluted web of what's happening there. But this is a situation where, because you have two members of the Security Council on opposite sides of things, the UN kind of gets stuck in the middle on this. And with Russia blocking this resolution, it looks like something else may have to take place. There's not a whole lot that can be done, at least as of now. Now, this is not the first time Russia has stepped in to kind of obstruct this ability to identify the perpetrators of these attacks. This is, I believe, the fourth time they've done so on chemical weapons alone, and at least the 10th time, I believe, in Syria, somewhere in that range, that they've stepped in to try to slow down or stop some of these investigations. Again, they claim that they believe the investigations are biased against them specifically, but also against their allies, and so that's why they're doing it. And Russia claims to still be in discussion about these things. claiming that there are errors, there's flaws, there's certain standards that they need to be meeting in these investigations, and they're not being met. And so that there's been these votes to kind of continue, and Russia stepped in and basically said, no, this is not the first time that's happened. It'll be something to kind of keep an eye on going forward too. Now, the other kind of big story I wanted to touch on out of Russia is kind of an unusual one. Again, just came out about a couple hours ago, I believe, at least on this one news source, is that Putin is working to, or he has at least plans to build a bridge that's going to connect southern Russia into the Crimean Peninsula. Now, those of you who've been following news over the last several years, the Crimean Peninsula, at least up until 2014, belonged to the country of Ukraine. And in March of that year, Russian troops kind of marched in, seized Crimea, and this was a big ordeal. There was a lot of questions as to what was going to be done about that. President Obama was in office at the time, and he was actually often criticized for not kind of stepping in and doing anything. And Putin has been criticized for this a lot, but he's basically thumbed his nose at the world over this, saying he doesn't really care. And with these plans to build this bridge, it's again a massive bridge. It's going to be about 12 miles long to connect to these two. He basically it appears that he plans on holding on to this plot of land in the Crimean Peninsula, at least for the near future. After they invaded this territory and seized Crimea, Putin basically announced this is now part of Russia. He was actually hailed as a hero back in his country, but outside Russia, he pretty much got condemned for it, and even had a lot of sanctions, both from the United States as well as for many of our allies. These sanctions were slapped against Russia because of this. But this big project is going to cost about $3 billion. And it's going to have to be quite sturdy as well. That part of the world is known for, fierce winds, earthquakes. There's a lot of ice as well. So this bridge is going to be a real engineering feat, if anything, if nothing else. And in particular, it's a very bold political statement that he's making about this land that he invaded and took over. Now, the bridge has actually already been taking place, although it just kind of came out recently. It's due to open up next year, and it will essentially act as just a connection between this recent land grab and Mother Russia. Locally, it's apparently being seen as kind of a source of pride, kind of a local tourist, attraction. But it's going to be used for tourism, carrying people. It's going to be used for transporting food and those sorts of things. And it will be definitely a big step towards Russia basically telling the world they're going to keep this. Now, the official American position is that Russia still has to give Crimea back to Ukraine. Our position is still that Crimea belongs to Ukraine, and we're going to keep sanctions on them as long as Russia holds on to this land, and they need to return it back. But 12 miles of bridge, of sturdy concrete, steel beams certainly sound like Russia is not going to back down on this, and that will be something that we should be keeping an eye on as Russia continues its kind of power grab in that part of the world. Much like China has been extending into the South China Sea, we've seen Russia engage in some of these similar, obviously different tactics. China's maritime, this is land-based, but these tactics of kind of extending not only their influence but their actual position out into further territory. It's actually pretty uncommon nowadays to find true land wars. There aren't too many wars that take place literally over grabbing territory. There's a handful, but most wars now are fought more ideologically based, and so that they physically went in and took land from another country is a pretty big deal, and it will be interesting to watch kind of going forward. And the U.S. is going to have to be very, very careful, as well as the rest of the world, that Putin does not continue these moves. During the Obama administration, again, this is when he did it kind of near the end there in 2014, and Obama, kind of back down on a lot of this, and it kind of remains to be seen what Trump's position will be as well. Now, Russia also has a couple other things going on. Just touch on, we're almost out of time here, only a couple more minutes, so we'll end with something a little bit lighter, although still Russia tied. In that recently Russia was banned, or had at least a partial ban on some of its athletes from competing in the Winter Olympics. They've been engaged in a lot of doping tactics, and the World Anti-Doping Agency, essentially banned them from competing in the Olympics. And recently, Russia was asked to kind of become compliant again, and drop the doping elements. And just recently, the World Anti-Doping Agency, again, this came out earlier today, upheld its decision that the Russian agency and the Russian athletes remain non-compliant. Now, we are less than, I believe, 3 months from the opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics, which will take place in South Korea. Again, tying back to the Koreas, that takes place in February. So this is a big deal, as Russia may end up having a lot of their athletes, at least potentially banned from competing in this. And Russia always sends a lot of athletes, so this would be a big deal in kind of the sporting realm as well. Now, Russia's agency was actually initially deemed non-compliant about a year ago. There was a report that said the Russian government was conspiring with their athletes to undertake this doping program. So this is something that kind of goes all the way to the top, and the Russian government was getting involved in trying to promote kind of Russian superiority in a lot of these feats of physical strength, which is a big signal. States like this are, particularly Putin, are really big on signaling strength and power. This is why you tend to see a lot of photos of him come out, the shirtless, hunting and riding horses and things. It's all this signaling of strength and power. And this is something that they've tried to do in the Olympics as well. And as I said, they've now been told that they're not being compliant on some of these concerns, which will be interesting to see how Russia continues going forward. Now, as we're kind of running right up on time here, as I mentioned, we'll be ending the show on taps. So I just want to take a minute to read this press release of a soldier who died in service to the country. Give me 1 second. All right. The Department of Defense announced today the death of a soldier who was supporting Operation Freedom Sentinel. Sergeant First Class Houghton O. Brown, 43, of Brooklyn, New York, died November 14th in Camp Buring, Kuwait, as a result of a non-combat related incident. He was assigned to the 306th Engineer Company, 411th Engineer Brigade, Farmingdale, New York.
Don't miss Cabela's Black Friday Doorbuster sale for 5 hours only. Save $50 after mail-in rebate on a Remington UMC 9mm handgun bucket of ammo. Get Cabela's O2 Octane Performance hoodies for only $19.99. And save $60 on a Nikon Aculon Camo rangefinder. Plus, be one of the first 600 in line to receive a free giveaway. Doors open at 5 a.m. Can't wait? Cabela's is now open on Thanksgiving Day. Shop in-store and at Cabela's.com.